The Colbert is the newest legendary tier ship to debut as a permanent unit in World of Warships Legends, and today we are going to talk about this overpowered monstrosity of a light French cruiser. That's right, I said overpowered. Some of you are probably familiar with this ship. It was available as a rental some time ago, I think around a holiday season, and back then when I featured it, I said it was probably overpowered, and my opinion has only solidified in the interim. This ship is absolutely insane, and I wanted to open the video up by demonstrating the ridiculous DPM this thing can pump out. So when we started shooting at this Flanders, we had 48,000 damage done. We've lit a fire on him, and we've lit yet another. Don't think he can damage con that one, so now we're switching to the AP. And if I recall correctly, the Colbert has the highest potential AP DPM of any ship in this entire game, and it really shows in this engagement versus the Flanders, who is more or less helpless to do anything in return to us. This is the Colbert at what I think is its absolute most insane. Flanders is not going to be on the surface of the sea for much longer. Again, remember we started this engagement with 48,000 damage done, and as this Flanders goes down, we see we have 97,000 damage done, which means we more than doubled our damage in that short amount of time that we were shooting at the Flanders. It was just over a minute, but it was absolutely less than 2 minutes. I think it was less than a minute in 30 seconds, actually. So a scary amount of DPM in a very short amount of time, and we're going to see similar results versus this main out here, although we are going to end up with about 40,000 damage more after shooting this main by the time he goes down, and that's mostly because we only shoot HE at him. The ship becomes much more effective when you can switch between the high explosive and armor piercing, and these are destroyer caliber shells, which means they're 127mm guns, and they have a very short reload. If you put the reload mod on this ship, which you should do, then the reload is 3 seconds, and you can buff that even further with commander skills. I'll show you the two builds that I used when I was testing out the Colbert, because I think both of them are pretty much equally good, and essentially it is a matter of playstyle as to which one you want to choose. But there, the main is going to go down with our last couple of shells, and well, we started this clip at 48,000 damage done. We end this clip and transition into our feature presentation after seeing we did 137,000 damage. So if that doesn't give you a good idea of the kind of monstrous DPM you can expect from this thing, well then I think maybe the rest of this game will. So we've seen, of course, the monstrous DPM of these guns. Well, what are the downsides of Colbert if it's got guns this good? That might be a question you're asking yourself at this point. It's certainly a question I would ask myself, and if I were to ask myself what are the Colbert's downsides, I don't know that I could really come up with an answer for you. It has 14 guns that it can get on target at any one time. Provided you get the right angle going, you can angle the ship in such a way that one of the winged turrets on the other side of the ship can actually fire over the ship and at the target. It's pretty bizarre, but anyway, we've seen the DPM. I haven't talked about the armor, though. The Colbert is, unlike most light cruisers, quite heavily armored, in that it is coated in 32mm of plating. Now, those of you who know a thing or two about this game know that only the Yamato is capable of overmatching 32mm of plating. And for those of you who may not know or need a refresher on what overmatch means, anytime you fire an armor-piercing shell at a plate of armor in this game, a calculation is performed upon that AP shell's impact with the armor plate. And the result of that calculation is either a penetration by the AP shell, a shatter, or a ricochet. If an armor-piercing shell comes into contact with an armor plate that it can overmatch, it means no calculation is performed. The shell simply penetrates the armor for full damage, no questions asked. So that is why the Yamato is frankly so scary for some ships, because the Yamato can citadel you from any angle. And the Yamato is the only battleship capable, theoretically, of doing that to the Colbert in this game because of its 32mm plating. But take a look at how this ship is shaped. It is very flat. There are flat surfaces everywhere, and if you look at the bow and the stern, you'll notice that those decks of the ship are lower in the water relative to the gigantic midsection, which in comparison positively towers over everything else. And on that midsection there are a lot of flat sides, particularly if you point the cruiser bow on toward an enemy or you've got it pointing stern on. Lots of flat, shell-catching surfaces that guarantee battleships will have the random opportunity to sink a penetration into one of those armored surfaces, and when they do, it's going to deal a crap ton of damage. So I think the best advice for playing this ship is treat it as if you can't angle against battleship shells, because in practice, a lot of the time it feels like you can't. Instead, rely on the Colbert's maneuverability, which is pretty dang good. It's got a pretty small turning circle and a responsive rudder shift, and it's quite fast because it comes with a French engine boost, which, if I'm not entirely mistaken, offers a 20% boost of speed in comparison to a regular engine boost, which only offers 8%. So you kick on that engine boost and you can get this ship going in excess of 40 knots, which is blisteringly fast for a cruiser, and it makes it difficult for enemy battleships to hit you if you are moving that quickly, especially if you're also dodging and changing your course, potentially changing your speed, and generally just trying to be as unpredictable as possible. It can seem like it is very difficult indeed for the enemy battleships to damage you, and the only thing that is going to prevent you from damaging them in return is how good you are at aiming these guns over long distances, because again, destroyer caliber guns with, as you can see here, very, very floaty shell arcs, so it takes a long time for these shells to reach the target if you're aiming them at anything even slightly far away. But even if things are far away, it is a good idea, as I was saying a little bit earlier, to switch between the AP and the HE. Doing so is going to make you as effective as you can possibly be. Speaking of upsides for the Colbert, because again, I can't really think of any downsides, you might have noticed that I got the Clear Skies medal. There is an enemy Kaga in this game who has spent basically the entire first half, or at least it felt that way to me, flying his planes over near where I am. Maybe he hasn't been trying to drop me specifically, but has been trying to drop nearby teammates. And, well, we've already got the Clear Sky medal, and we're going to have over 40 of his planes shot down by the time this battle ends, which leads me to believe that the Colbert's anti-aircraft firepower is actually really good, and if you enjoy playing CVs, this might be one to look out for. Now, I did talk a little bit earlier about showing you my builds, and for that, I have prepared 2 overlays that will show you the mod selection and the commander, as well as the inspirations and the commander skills. And I've created these in the form of overlays, which I don't know necessarily if I'm happy with, but for this video, if you have noticed, I have tried a little bit more at editing, and hopefully the results are good. If you like them, let me know in the comments, but keep in mind that if I am going to more heavily edit my videos, it is going to take me more time. In any case, the first commander build you could run is, of course, Le Monnier. The benefits of this build are that it extends the range of the guns, it can increase the fire chance, and it can increase the armor-piercing shell's penetrative capabilities. The downsides, of course, are that with longer guns, well, that may be diminishing returns, honestly, because the shells take so long to reach their target at long ranges that, honestly, you might not want to buff them too far above their base range because, frankly, you're just going to have a hard time hitting them. But if you want to increase the offensive capabilities with respect to the guns on the Colbert as much as possible, then Le Monnier is your guy. But this ship functions just as well under Andre Roux, whose base trait does increase the high explosive alpha strike on these guns, which only further serves to make this DPM potential even more outrageous. And Roux buffs the maneuverability characteristics of this ship by increasing the speed and making the rudder shift time more responsive. So he's probably a little bit better for the survivability and potentially the better commander choice overall, although I did play most of the games, including the one you're seeing playing out before you with Le Monnier. And now let's change gears for just a brief moment as we observe what I'm doing to this mines. I hadn't pointed it out a little bit earlier as I meant to, but this mines has been giving me broadside pretty much this entire time, and, well, I really don't think I can understate how effective the AP can be just by sheer volume. It is French too, so it probably has better penetration than other shells of the same size found on other nations, so there is that, but absolutely no problem melting all the hit points from that mines. And really, that just leaves an enemy cruiser who I think we are going to meet. It's Hms Minotaur. He's clearly behind this island, hiding in a smoke screen, so we're going to see if we can't go toe-to-toe with him, potentially. And then we are going to hunt down the carrier, because at that point in the game, the carrier will be a lovely damage pinata that will allow us to pad our numbers that much more if we can find him, which, spoiler alert, we're going to do. But since the game is winding down, perhaps it's a good idea to talk about how you actually go about getting this ship. And in order to get it, you're going to need steel. And I've noticed around the community that some people are, for reasons that are completely bizarre to me, maybe you can explain them in the comments section if you're one of these people, but people seem to be upset that you have to spend 3,000 steel to essentially buy a bureau mission, which you then have to complete in order to get the Colbert. But here's the thing. Steel debuted as a currency in this game a long time ago, over a year ago at this point, and you get it by grinding it out through ranked seasons and ranking out, or else by grinding out wins after completing or whaling a campaign. Now, I have not whaled a campaign since Steel was put into this game. I've completed campaigns early by doing missions, and I also haven't completed every single ranked season that offered Steel, or even all the events that offered Steel since its release into the game. Even so, I had racked up 13,000 steel, and it costs a mere 3,000 steel to unlock the Bureau project for the Colbert. Meanwhile, what are your other choices in the armory? Well, I guess you could get promotion orders or insignias, but you can also get those in campaigns and in other places. The most valuable thing in the store for steel right now, aside from the Colbert mission, is, of course, the USS Missouri. But that thing costs so much steel that I'm pretty convinced I'm never going to get it, and frankly, if you're going to choose between trying to bank your steel in order to afford the Missouri or buying the Bureau mission to get the Colbert, well, the Colbert is an overpowered monstrosity that, frankly, is probably pretty bad for this game. It's just too punishing. Nothing can push into this ship without being subjected to its incredible hail of HE and AP spam. I mean, it just melts things. It's disgusting, frankly, and if you think games are too passive and people don't push enough, this is exactly the kind of ship you don't want to see enter this game, because it just discourages people from pushing with its crazy firepower. But at the same time, I can't say I wouldn't recommend you get this ship, because it is outrageous, and once you get the hang of it, which I don't think should take too long because of this incredible DPM, then it can be really, really fun to play and pretty satisfying just because of the sheer amount of damage you'll have by the end of the game and how quickly you can take ships out. So I highly recommend getting the Bureau mission for the Colbert, because it is, well, it's insane. Hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I will, as always, see you next time. But for now, goodbye.